Welcome to Craving the Heat, where desire takes the lead and every story leaves you wanting more. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments and keep up with our latest naughty stories. It was a quiet evening, one of those nights where everything seemed to be falling into place. My husband Luke and I had been married for 5 years, and while our life together was comfortable and stable, I couldn't help but notice that something was missing. I loved him deeply, but there was a growing sense of longing I couldn't ignore. I found myself craving something more than just routine. That was when I met Mia. Mia had been a friend of a friend, someone I had met at a social gathering. Months ago, she was bright, confident, and so easy to talk to. Over time, we had exchanged messages and began to spend more time together, discussing everything from books to personal dreams. Mia had an energy about her that was magnetic, and I could feel myself drawn to her in ways I hadn't anticipated. But there was also something else, an undeniable spark between us, something I couldn't explain. One evening, Luke and I were talking about how we needed to spice things up. Our marriage, while strong, had fallen into a predictable rhythm. Luke mentioned that he had always fantasized about inviting someone else into our relationship just to explore something new. I was surprised, but the idea lingered in my mind. We had always been open with each other, and I knew that whatever we decided, it would be together. So I made the decision. I invited Mia over for a casual dinner, not fully knowing where it would lead, but trusting that it would be a chance for us to explore this idea together. When Mia arrived, her warm smile and easygoing nature immediately set me at ease. She greeted Luke with a friendly hug, and we spent the evening chatting and laughing as we shared a meal. There was an electric tension in the air, but it was unspoken. The chemistry was undeniable, but we kept it light. As the evening wore on, Mia and I found ourselves talking alone in the kitchen. The conversation shifted to something deeper, something more intimate. She confessed that she had always admired how open and trusting my relationship with Luke seemed to be. She wondered if she could ever experience that kind of connection with someone where trust was paramount. The vulnerability in her voice tugged at my heart, and before I realized it, I found myself drawn to her in a way I hadn't expected. There was something in the way she spoke, the way she looked at me, that made me want to be closer to her. I couldn't deny the feelings swirling inside me. But there was also guilt for even thinking about crossing a line I hadn't yet fully understood. I loved Luke, and I didn't want to betray him. Yet there was something about Mia that made my heart race in a way that felt unfamiliar, exhilarating. The night ended with Mia leaving, but my thoughts were consumed by the events of the evening. Luke and I discussed everything openly, just as we always did. He was curious about what had happened, but I couldn't bring myself to tell him how I felt, how I wanted Mia, how she had awakened something inside me that I couldn't quite explain. Over the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about her. I realized I was attracted to Mia in a way that went beyond just the physical. It was an emotional pull. Every text message from her felt like a lifeline. Every conversation like an invitation to explore something deeper. One afternoon, Mia and I met for coffee. The connection between us was magnetic. She looked at me with a warmth that made my pulse quicken. And before I knew it, I was telling her things I hadn't shared with anyone, not even Luke. The rawness of our conversation made me realize just how much I'd been missing in my life. I never expected this, Mia said softly as we talked. I thought it was just going to be about fun, but there is something about you that makes me want to open up, to trust you in ways I haven't with anyone else. Her words hit me hard, stirring something deep within me. I realized that what I felt for Mia was more than just a fleeting attraction. It was something that made me feel alive. Something that touched my soul in a way I hadn't felt in years. Later that night, Luke was away on business, and I found myself texting Mia. The text turned into a phone call, and then, before I knew it, we were standing outside my door. It felt like the universe had conspired to bring us together in that moment. As we stood there, her eyes searching mine, I knew there was no turning back. I don't know what this is, I said, my voice trembling slightly. but I can't stop thinking about you." Mia reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my face, her touch sending a shiver down my spine. "I don't know either," she whispered, her lips dangerously close to mine. "But I know I want to explore this with you." And just like that, in the quiet of my home, with the city asleep around us, Mia and I crossed a line I never expected. We kissed, slowly at first, then with an urgency that matched the fire between us. It wasn't just physical, it was emotional, spiritual, a connection that was raw and real. That night in her arms, I realized something. This was about more than just exploring something new. It was about rediscovering what I had lost. The connection with Mia filled a part of me I hadn't even known was missing. And as we lay together afterward, I realized I was no longer just seeking excitement or passion. I was seeking the truth of who I was and who I wanted to be. The next morning, as I stood in the kitchen making coffee, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. Mia had awakened something deep inside me, something that had been dormant for too long. But I was still married to Luke, and I knew I had to confront the choices I had made. When Luke came home, I was honest with him. I told him everything, the connection I had with Mia, the feelings I'd discovered, and how I felt torn between love and desire. He listened, his eyes filled with a mixture of concern and understanding. It wasn't easy, and the road ahead was uncertain, but we both knew this moment would define the future of our relationship. Over time, Luke and I worked through the complexities of our feelings. It wasn't easy, but the openness and honesty we shared allowed us to grow together. And Mia, too, became a part of my life, but in a way that was filled with respect, understanding, and a deep emotional bond. In the end, I realized that love wasn't just about passion, it was about connection, about knowing and being known, about vulnerability and trust. I had discovered a love with Mia, but I also had to rediscover the love with Luke, the man I had married and built a life with. Both relationships challenged me in different ways, but together they made me understand the depth of what it meant to truly love and be loved. I invited Mia over to please my husband, but I ended up wanting her more. But more than that, I learned that true love wasn't about perfection. It was about the willingness to explore, to be open, and to embrace the unexpected twists life can bring. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of emotions. I was caught between two worlds, one with Luke, my husband, the man I had committed to for better or worse, and one with Mia, the woman who had stirred something deep inside me. It was an emotional tug of war, where every interaction with Mia seemed to reaffirm the depth of our connection, and every moment with Luke reminded me of the life we had built together. Mia and I spent more time together, sometimes in secret, sometimes out in the open, navigating the delicate balance of our growing love. I could feel it in every touch, every word, every glance. She had become a part of my life in ways I hadn't expected, a constant in a world that was suddenly very uncertain. But the deeper our relationship grew, the more I realized that I wasn't just in love with the idea of her, I was in love with her. Mia, with her kindness, her strength, her vulnerability, and the way she made me feel like I could be my true self, was everything I had been yearning for. But that didn't mean I could easily turn my back on Luke. We had shared years together, years of memories, laughter, and even heartbreak. Our love wasn't perfect, but it was built on a foundation of trust and shared experiences. When I looked at Luke, I still saw the man I had married, the man who had held me through the hard times, the man who had always been my anchor. One evening, after a long day of work, I sat down with Luke. His face was tired, the stress of his job evident in the lines on his forehead. But when he looked at me, there was still a softness in his eyes. I took a deep breath, gathering my courage. This conversation was going to be difficult, but it was one that needed to happen. "Luke," I began, my voice tentative, "there's something I need to tell you. Something I've been carrying around with me for a while now." He looked at me, his expression a mix of concern and curiosity. "What is it, love?" "I've been seeing someone else," I said, the words feeling like they hung in the air, both heavy and freeing. I never intended for it to happen. but I've developed feelings for her. I need you to understand, this isn't about you or our marriage. It's about me, about something inside me I didn't even know was missing. Luke's eyes widened, and for a moment I feared I'd broken something that couldn't be fixed. He stayed silent, processing my words. I could see the hurt in his eyes, but there was also a quiet understanding, something that told me he had known, in his own way, that something had been different with me lately. "I'm not angry," he finally said, his voice steady but thick with emotion. "I'm hurt, yes, but I'm not angry. I don't understand." "Why her?" I took a deep breath, trying to find the right words to explain the complexity of my feelings. "It's not about her being a replacement for you. It's about how she makes me feel. She sees me in a way that I haven't felt seen in a long time. And I think in some ways I've been hiding from parts of myself, Mia ... She helps me feel more whole." Luke nodded slowly, as if taking in everything I had said. There was a long pause before he spoke again. "I don't know what this means for us," he said quietly, "but I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose what we've built. We've been through so much together." Tears welled up in my eyes as I reached out to him. "I don't want to lose us either. But I need to understand who I am, and I need to figure out what I want. This isn't about choosing one person over the other. It's about understanding myself." Luke's expression softened, his hand brushing against mine. "I love you. You know that, right? Whatever happens, I want you to be happy. But I need time to process this, to understand what all of this means." I nodded, my heart aching. "I know. I'm sorry for putting you through this. I never meant for it to go this far." That night, we slept in separate rooms. The silence between us was heavy, filled with unspoken questions and emotions neither of us had the answers to. As I lay in bed, I couldn't help but think about Mia, about how she had made me feel alive again, about how she had awakened a part of me I kept buried for so long. But as I closed my eyes, I realized that the love I had with Luke wasn't something that could be easily dismissed. It was a love that had grown over years, a love that had weathered storms, and a love that had the potential to grow stronger if we were both willing to fight for it. In the days that followed, I spent time with Mia trying to navigate the whirlwind of emotions I was feeling. I realized I couldn't simply jump from one relationship to another. My love for Mia was real, and it was something I wanted to explore, but I couldn't ignore the life I had built with Luke, as much as I wanted to. Embrace the passion and excitement Mia brought into my life. I knew I needed to give Luke and me the time to heal, to reconnect, and to figure out if we could find a way forward together. Mia, for her part, was understanding. She knew the situation wasn't simple, and though she had confessed her own feelings, for me, she also knew I needed space to figure things out. She was patient with me, giving me the time I needed to process my emotions and find clarity. Over time, Luke and I started talking more, not just about our marriage, but about our needs, our desires, and the things we had both been hiding from each other. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. We sought therapy together, and through that process, we learned to communicate in ways we never had before. Slowly, our connection began to heal, not just on the surface, but deep within. Mia and I continued our relationship, but it wasn't the passionate whirlwind romance I'd once imagined. It was slower, more grounded, and filled with the promise of something deeper. I realized that while Mia had opened my eyes to new possibilities, the love I had with Luke was something that could be rekindled. The passion between us was not something I wanted to throw away. It was something worth nurturing and rebuilding. In the end, I didn't have to choose between Luke and Mia. Instead, I chose to rediscover who I was, what I wanted, and what kind of love I truly desired. I learned that love isn't always clear-cut, and sometimes it's about exploring, discovering, and being honest with yourself and the people you care about. Mia remained an important part of my life, but Luke and I, with time and effort, rebuilt our marriage. Our love wasn't perfect, but it was real. It was a love that had been tested, but one that had the potential to grow and evolve in ways we hadn't yet imagined thought. And as we moved forward, hand in hand, I realized that love was never about choosing one person over the other. It was about choosing to grow, to be vulnerable, and to trust in the journey, no matter where it led. The months passed, and though the road to healing was not without its bumps, I could feel the transformation happening within me. Both with Luke and with Mia, I had learned valuable lessons about love, trust, and self-awareness. Our marriage had faced challenges it had never encountered before, but we had come out the other side stronger. It wasn't just the rekindling of our passion, it was the rekindling of our friendship. The core of what we had once shared. Luke and I were no longer strangers to each other. We began to have real conversations, ones that explored not just our desires, but our fears. We talked about how easy it was to drift apart in the hustle and bustle of daily life, how sometimes we needed to make space for each other emotionally. And physically, slowly, I began to rediscover the reasons why I had fallen in love with him in the first place. There were no illusions. There was no magic bullet to fix the hurt I had caused, nor the confusion I had inflicted on myself. But there was something undeniable in the way we rebuilt our foundation. It wasn't about quick fixes. It was about honesty, patience, and understanding. One afternoon, we found ourselves sitting at our kitchen table, the space where we had once shared quiet moments together. It was a cold day, the kind where the chill outside made the warmth inside feel that much more comforting. Luke reached across the table, taking my hand in his, and for the first time in a long while, I felt his touch as a connection, not just a gesture. "I know this hasn't been easy," he said, his voice low and steady, "but I think we're finding our way back." I nodded, squeezing his hand. "We're getting there, Luke. I know it's been hard for both of us, but I think we've learned a lot about each other. I've learned a lot about myself, too." There was a pause, and I saw him looking at me, really looking at me in a way he hadn't in months. It was a gaze full of understanding, of love, and of something I hadn't realized we had been missing. "Hope. I don't want to lose you," he said softly. "But I don't want to go back to what we had before either. I want us to grow together, not just as a couple, but as individuals too." His words made my heart swell. I had never truly understood the depth of his commitment to us until that moment. It wasn't just about staying together, it was about growing together, evolving as people and learning how to support each other's journeys. "I don't want to go back to what we had either," I admitted, my voice thick with emotion. "I want something new. I want us to be more than just a couple. We need to be partners in every sense of the word. And I want to keep exploring who we are, both, together and on our own." Luke smiled, a smile that felt like the beginning of something new. "I'm ready for that, if you are." It was in that moment that I realized something profound. I wasn't in love with the idea of love, nor was I in love with what I thought it should be. I was in love with who I was becoming through these experiences, and with the person Luke had helped me become. And yet, there was Mia. As much as I found peace with Luke, I knew I still had feelings for her, feelings that were real, raw, and undeniable. The bond we had shared, the connection we had built, was not something I could easily dismiss. Mia, too, had been on her own journey. After everything that happened, we both needed time to grow, to understand what this relationship meant and how it fit into our lives. I had to be honest with her about the space I needed to figure out my life with Luke, and she had been understanding. But I knew our connection wasn't one that could simply be pushed away. A few weeks later, after several deep, reflective conversations with myself and with Luke, I reached out to Mia. I knew what I wanted to say, but I wasn't sure how to say it. The love I had for her was real, but it wasn't enough to tear apart the life I had rebuilt with Luke. I wanted Mia to understand that my love for her was not a phase, it was a deep and meaningful connection. But I also had to acknowledge that I couldn't be in a relationship with both of them. The journey I was on was one of self-discovery, and I had to be true to myself and to them both. We met at a park, a quiet place where we had first shared so many of our deeper conversations. As I sat next to her, my heart pounding, I could feel the weight of what I was about to say. "Mia," I started, my voice unsteady. "I care for you deeply. What we shared was special and I'll always cherish it. But I've realized that the love I have with Luke, the life we've built, is something I want to continue to grow. It's not because I don't love you, it's because I've realized the importance of commitment, and I need to commit to what I have with him." Mia looked at me, her expression a mixture of sadness and understanding. "I know," she said, softly, her eyes meeting mine with tenderness. "I knew this was coming in a way, and I respect that. You need to be where your heart is. But Mia, that doesn't mean I'm just walking away from you. What we had is real. You'll always hold a special place in my heart." She nodded, squeezing my hand. "I'll always be here for you, no matter what, and I'm glad you found clarity. That's the most important thing." That afternoon, I left with a sense of peace. Mia and I might not have ended up together, but we both understood the importance of following our hearts, no matter how difficult it was. We had each learned valuable lessons about love, trust, and how to be true to ourselves. In the months that followed, Luke and I grew closer than I ever thought possible. Our relationship was stronger, not because we had erased the past, but because we had learned from it. We had found a deeper understanding of each other and of ourselves. Our marriage had transformed into something more than just the love we once had. It had become a partnership of mutual respect, growth, and trust. And with Mia, though we had parted ways romantically, we remained friends, two people who had showed a deep, meaningful connection and who understood the importance of letting go when necessary. I knew that in some way, Mia would always be a part of me, but I'd made the choice to move forward, to build the life I truly wanted with Luke. In the end, love wasn't about choosing between two people, it was about choosing the path that allowed me to be my truest self, to be with someone who valued me for who I was, and to grow in ways I never thought possible. The months that followed were transformative. Luke and I had rediscovered the love that had brought us together years ago, but now it was deeper, more mature, and more rooted in understanding. The foundation we had built was stronger than ever. We shared our hopes and dreams, our fears, and our vulnerabilities in ways we never had before. It was a love that was not only passionate, but profound. We had learned how to communicate openly, how to navigate the complexities of life together, and how to cherish the moments, both big and small. Our bond had evolved from something once fragile into something unshakable. There were still challenges, of course, there always would be, but with each passing day, we learned to face them side by side. Luke's love became a source of strength for me, and in turn, I knew I was the same for him. We had both grown, individually and as a couple, and I'd come to understand that love wasn't just about the rush of passion. It was about finding comfort in each other's presence, finding joy in the mundane, and discovering new ways to love and appreciate each other every day. One evening, after a particularly long week of work and life's usual pressures, Luke surprised me. He told me to get dressed up, that he was taking me somewhere special. My heart fluttered with excitement as I slipped into my favorite dress, knowing it would be a night to remember. We arrived at a quiet, candlelit restaurant tucked away in a corner of the city. The intimate setting, soft music, and flickering candles created an atmosphere so perfect it felt like something out of a dream. We shared a quiet dinner, each bite of food, each glance, filled with unspoken words. The connection between us was palpable, so strong, so alive. There was no need for pretense, no need for anything, but the warmth we had cultivated between us. As the evening wore on, we sat in silence for a moment, content in each other's presence. Luke reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine, sending a familiar spark through me. "I've been thinking," he began, his voice soft but filled with a sincerity that made my heart race, "about everything we've been through and everything we've built together. We've come so far, and it hasn't been easy, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. I love you more than I ever thought was possible." I felt a lump form in my throat as I looked into his eyes, so full of emotion, so full of love. "I love you too, Luke. We didn't realize how much I was missing until I found it again with you. You're everything to me." His smile was radiant, and in that moment, I knew that everything we had been through had led us to this point. We had rebuilt ourselves, rebuilt our love, and it was stronger than ever. There was no doubt in my heart that this was where I was meant to be. After dinner, we walked hand in hand along the quiet streets, the cool night air wrapping around us as we strolled. The city around us felt distant, as though we were in our own world, cocooned in the love we shared. We stopped at a small park where we had spent time together in the past, and Luke pulled me into his arms. The world around us disappeared as we stood there, just the two of us, lost in the moment. "I want to make tonight unforgettable," he whispered, his lips brushing against my ear, sending shivers down my spine. His voice was full of intent, full of the passion that had been building between us for so long. I looked up at him, my heart beating faster as I felt the pull between us. "I want that too," I said, my voice thick with desire. Without another word, Luke kissed me. It wasn't a soft kiss, nor was it hesitant. It was deep, full of longing and desire, as if we had both been waiting for this moment to surrender completely to each other. His hands cupped my face, pulling me closer, as if he wanted to be closer to me than ever before. I could feel his heart beating against mine, and everything else faded away. There was only us, the love we shared and the passion that had been. Simmering for so long, our kiss deepened, the urgency building as our hands roamed, exploring, reconnecting in ways we hadn't done in months. The world around us blurred, and all I could focus on was the way he made me feel alive, desired, and cherished. We didn't need words, not when our bodies spoke to each other so clearly. The way his hands gently traced the curve of my body, the way our lips moved in perfect harmony was all the communication we needed. It wasn't just about physical pleasure, it was about the love, the trust, and the connection that had been. Waiting to explode between us eventually, we made our way back to the apartment, our pace quickening as the heat between us intensified. When we entered, there was no hesitation, no second guessing. Luke led me to the bedroom and we collapsed onto the bed, our bodies entwined in a dance that was both slow and urgent. It was as if we were rediscovering each other, learning every inch of each other once again. In that moment, I realized something profound. This wasn't just about passion. It was about giving ourselves fully to one another without fear, without reservation. It was about being vulnerable and trusting that the person we loved would hold us close, protect us, and love us. Fiercely, as the night wore on, we lost ourselves in each other, every kiss, every touch, more intense than the last. It was as though we were making up for lost time, but also laying the foundation for something that would last forever. Our love, our passion was a flame that had been kindled and had now burned brighter than ever before. When we finally lay beside each other, our bodies spent and our hearts racing, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I was exactly where I was meant to be, wrapped in the arms of the man I loved. A love that had withstood trials and challenges, but had only grown stronger. "I love you," I whispered, my voice hoarse with emotion. "I love you too," Luke replied, his hand brushing through my hair as he kissed me once more, softly, tenderly. And in that moment, I knew that our love wasn't just a fleeting passion. It was a love that would continue to burn brightly, a love that would weather whatever came our way. Passion, trust, and commitment, this was what we had. And it was more than enough.